Alrighty, this will be the people news. There should be no more ding dongs on here. However, I'm going to stand corrected if it does because I'm going to track down which other deal is causing it. Alright, so that being said, I'm just with the people news. Okay? I'm not an attorney, not giving legal advice. However, I just don't look straight forward, always look around me, be able to protect myself by any means necessary. I use that Second Amendment, arm myself with knowledge. All right? And arming yourself with knowledge is just way of thinking outside the box. You know, somebody may have some ideas here, somebody has ideas here, right? There's 64 million laws out there. And every judge, every cop, everybody's breaking laws because we've been oversaturated with alleged laws, uh, you know, Roman civil laws, common laws, merchant. And when you challenge jurisdiction of the court, they can't tell you which jurisdiction it is because when you're involved in there, you start bringing up things to their attention. Then they may actually go into amity, and then they'll go into common law, and then they may go into merchant. You know, so they jump around so much because they made it all coincide with one another. Sorry about that. There's a fly buzzing in here. But, and this is the main reason why you got to have jurisdiction challenge to it as well, so it could be clearly established at that point. What are you standing in? Are we in common law? Are we administrative? Are we in merchant? Are we in constitutional laws? You know? And so it's just not the one size fits all. It's one question asking, jurisdiction question. Now let's see here. So, back to questions. This is all questions. And with his local municipality, right? He wants to get direct answers from them and find out how he is obligated to be regulated by these fictions. Okay, so let's check out what he has to say.
Well, right off the bat, one of the things I would ask him is, do you have any ownership or interest in my property? The next thing I would ask is, do you have any in-rem or quasi-in-rem ownership or interest in my property? Is there any contracts between you and me? Is there any record of me being...
Let me start that over. Geez, I forgot what I was going to say. All right, my mistake. Let's go.
So right off the bat, one of the things I would ask him is, do you have any ownership or interest in my property? The next thing I would ask is, do you have any in-rem or quasi-in-rem ownership or interest in my property? Is there any...
Okay. Now, there's going to be times in here he's going to say private property. Now, understand this as well. Because you go in there and you don't know what the judge is thinking, right? You got to decipher private property, right? So Walmart's a private corporation, private property, where your property is private property, right? But somehow or another, you're regulated just the same as Walmart. You get a couple of extra privileges that, you know, they must have a warrant to come and search your house or something like that. But that being said, so you got to actually stretch out that private property under your definition of your said property and not the corporate. So my said non-corporation private property. Okay? Because they, the judge, knows what you mean, but he's going to use that as the corporation private property.
Contracts between you and me? Is there any record of me being an employee of you? So I'm just putting out here a list of all the ones that I have done, and I've synthesized it down just for brevity, but you know, mine are paragraphs. You know, it may be 6 lines, 6 words in this line. Is there any contracts between you and me? But that right there is about 4 sentences, in my records request.
And technically, if you have a driver's license, they should absolutely have to say yes, and they should have to list that your driver's license is part of that.
That's the court of law bullshit, bro.
But
that's a quasi contract.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, what is it enforcing? What notice did anybody sit down with you from the DOT and explain all around? Did the city explain to you that that's some sort of magical power over you?
Oddly enough, no.
No, of course not. But you're right. That's kind of shit that they try to rope you in. Oh, you got a driver's license. Oh, okay. And so,
now that being said, I want to also stretch this out. You want to be clear in these paperwork, right? Exactly what he said, these questions, right? So even when you have a driver's license, and don't, right? I got a driver's license under duress, misled that I had to have such things to be able to travel. So, but is there any of these things listed? 1, 2, 3, 4. And am I operating in commercial at the here and now? Right? So you may have a driver's license, don't mean you're operating in commercial. It just means you are paired to operate in commercial. Now they may have presumptions you're operating in commercial because you got tags and insurance registration and all that on your car. You're presumed you're operating in commercial. So you got to kind of think and word these things in such depth that it cannot be misconstrued by the judge, magistrate, or liar.
Hey, what was that guy who was a deputy in Texas? And he started doing a lot of this. You know who I'm talking about?
Eddie Craig.
I don't recall the name.
And he had a whole lot of procedures for the ticket, the traveling, and all that kind of stuff. And he told people, don't roll down your windows. Don't give them your license and your registration. And it's one of the things that he said is that I'm going to synthesize the point. When the cop asks you for your driver's and insurance, and you're handing it over, now that can be used against you in a court of law, can it? Yeah, of course. But if you exercise your right.
I recently was pulled over, and I made him threaten to arrest me before I handed him my license, and he did immediately. He did immediately. Only under duress am I going to hand you my license. Well, I'm going to take you straight to jail. Well, that's duress, sir.
Yeah. Well, there is a provision. Okay, remember this book that I showed you? There's a provision in there where when you exercise your rights, the moment you say, I'm exercising my rights, or a lawyer or any of that kind of shit, they can't use any of that against you. So I'll look it up, and next time we get together, I'll put it out there.
I have a feeling I'll be finding it before you, but okay.
You probably will. And if I could remember, I used to have it on the top of my head because that's something I think I found that about 5 years ago, and I was like, hey man, if I get pulled over, I'm gonna, ask him, hey, can I, anything I say will be used against me? Anything I provide you? Well, the good thing is that I'm a pretty clean cut guy, so I really don't get in a lot of trouble for the most part.
Right.
Obviously, I cause more trouble. But anyway, all right, back to this bullshit. So, ask them, is there any records of obligations, duty, or responsibilities that I have pursuant to Arizona Constitution, Article 13, or Title 9 of cities and towns, or the city charter that was enacted in 1964? Did any of that create any obligation on me whatsoever? The answer is no. Okay. Provide the record of any services that I or my property provide to the city. Well, we don't. Any record of any funding, grants, loans, monies of any kind for the purchase of my property. They didn't give me any money. I didn't get a loan through them. Okay. Did I make any requests for a benefit or privilege? No. Okay. Is there any record or benefit of privilege provided to my property? No, they don't have any record of benefit or privilege that they're giving to my property. Is there any nexus with my property? Provide any record of any action I took to create a nexus. Who at the city determined that there was a substantial nexus? And what method did the city employee use to determine that there was a nexus? And what was all of the criteria for determining the creation of a nexus with me or my property? Okay, you know they're never going to answer that.
No.
Is there a situs associated with my property? Provide the record of any action that I took to create a situs. Who at the city determined that there was a situs? What method did the city employee use to determine that there was a situs? And what are all the criteria for determining the creation of situs with me and my property?
And I would ask them, where is it recorded?
Right. Well, that's a good point. Well, you think, by asking if there is a situs, that's a record, and they would have to provide you with that record.
Well, so
you know what I mean?
So as common sense people would think, but
yeah. Okay. So, is there any record of lien in fact? No. Okay. Provide a record of me being a taxpayer or a person defined in Arizona income. This is an Arizona definition of taxpayer and person. Was defined in 43104. They had no record of that. Record of me being a member, inhabitant, or resident of the city. Well, I had to ask this one about 3 times, and finally I got no record. Yeah. Shocker, right?
Right.
Is there any record of a regulatory business license or what's called a TPT here? It says transaction privilege tax license located in my property. No, there isn't. Did I request a business license? And so this is why they thought I was operating something here. Is because I think that what they did is they saw questions like this and were like, hey, this guy's we can get it. We can establish a nexus with this dude.
Yeah, he's trying to immunize himself.
Yeah, right. They thought I was thinking like a criminal. I wasn't. Like, oh, let me find out if the city's got a record of me screwing them. No, I was thinking, what possible way could they possibly have to come up? Because I was like, well, maybe they got something wrong. Maybe they do have a record. How do I know? Well, maybe there was an error somewhere. Maybe there was a clerical error somewhere. Okay. Here's another one. This one really directly pertains to nexus. Okay, so record of my property being economic marketplace. So the Department of Revenue has a definition for economic marketplace. They use it, and they use it to establish a substantial nexus so that they can tax your ass. Okay. And so that authority, it boils down to the city, and the city's got several pages pertaining to the economic marketplace in a nexus. And so, of course, I printed those pages off, and they are an exhibit in my lawsuit. Because guess what? Their answer was, there's no record of my property being an economic marketplace. Thus, there's no nexus. And this was their criteria, right? Okay. And I didn't qualify. I did not meet the elements of that nexus. So record of a business or small business or otherwise that is a creature of state that is regulated by state statutes located or associated with my property. Of course, there were none. Record of my property being a public land as defined by ARS Title 37, Section 901, and or having public interest. Record of an established right-of-way pursuant to ARS 33-2401. Of course, there isn't. Does the city compile and maintain a record of real properties that it owns? If so, provide that record. Now, here's the funny thing.
Now, that being said, this is Arizona. So look up Arizona's and then find what matches your state or your township of these particular codes. Okay. I don't know what's going on with this thing because I have everything shut off. So sorry about that, y'all. Trying to get that all cleared up. I don't know what else is on this phone yet, so I'll dig into that a little further. But moreover, you got to go through these processes and look up your own township, your own state, and all that. And every state and every township has these things. Okay? So this is how they tax everybody. All right? Nationwide. So what we're trying to do is call them out on the bullshit.
I asked that question. They refused to ever answer that question, even when I brought it back up. And this is so unbelievable. I didn't even know it at the time. Because what I was trying to establish is that, okay, if you own my property, then there should be on a record, on your records, your database. Now, guess what? It is. They have a record. They have a database. And who is responsible? Mr. Yoakum, who I sued. And I don't even understand why. I don't understand the inner workings of the city of Tempe. But this guy for the Code Correction Division, he's responsible for maintaining this property list. And of course, he never responded to any of my emails, any of that kind of stuff. Anyway, but he's responsible for these code enforcement people, and